Oklahoma, 1957, red dirt country, 30 miles outside Tulsa, where the roads turn to dust in summer and freeze to iron in winter, and the land does not apologize for either one. The farms out here are not pretty the way farms in magazines are pretty. They are flat and wide and serious, cotton fields running to the horizon, the sky coming down hard on all four sides, and a man either learns to work inside that, or he does not last. The Hale place was 280 acres of good red bottom ground that Earl Hale's father had broken with a borrowed plow in 1923, and Earl had taken over in 1952, the year he came home from Korea with a shrapnel scar on his left shoulder and a head full of things he did not talk about, and a plan to make something out of what his father had left him. He married Margaret Doyle that same spring, a schoolteacher's daughter from Broken Arrow, who had never farmed a day in her life and learned fast because Earl did not slow down long enough for her to learn slow. They had 2 children, a boy named James and a girl named Clara, and they built the place up together the way 2 people build something when they are both pulling in the same direction, and neither one of them is counting the hours. Earl ran the cotton, he ran the equipment, he haggled with the gin, he carried the banknote in his head the way farmers carry those things, turning the numbers over in the dark before sleep, calculating what each bale meant against what was owed, and every harvest the number got a little smaller, and the ground felt a little more like his and a little less like the bank's. Then in the spring of 1956, Earl Hale gets sick. It comes on fast, the way the bad ones do. A pain in his chest one Tuesday that he walks off, a worse one on Thursday that Margaret drives him into Tulsa for, and by the following Monday, the doctor in the hospital corridor is talking to Margaret in the quiet, careful voice that doctors use when the news has already happened and they are only now delivering it. Earl is 38 years old, Margaret is 34, James is 9, Clara is 7, and the cotton is already in the ground. She tries to hold the place together through that first year, and she comes closer than anyone expects her to. She hires 2 men from the county, she gets the cotton in, she runs the gin tickets herself, and sits at the kitchen table at night with Earl's ledger open in front of her and learns the numbers the way he knew them. But the hired men drift off by spring, one to the oil fields in Cushing where the pay comes every Friday in cash and nobody asks you to work a Sunday, the other one back to his own family's place 3 counties over. And the cotton that year comes in thin because the rains came wrong and the price per pound drops the week she brings it to the gin. The bank in Tulsa carries the note through the summer and into the fall, and then in February of 1957, a man named Clyde Birch drives out from First National in a gray Ford with a folder on the seat beside him and a look on his face that says he has done this before and does not enjoy it and is going to do it anyway. He is sorry, he tells her, standing on the porch with his hat in his hands. He says the word twice, the way people say a word twice when they know once wasn't enough but twice won't be either. The note is past due. The bank has carried it as long as it can carry it, and the farm will go to public auction in October. Anything the sale brings above the debt, she keeps. Everyone in that county already knows the sale will not bring $1 above the debt. October comes, the way October comes in Oklahoma. Cold mornings, clear hard light, the cotton already picked and the fields gone brown and flat, and the sky a color of blue that has no warmth left in it. The cars begin arriving before 8 in the morning. Pickup trucks and dusty sedans fill the section road on both sides for nearly half a mile, parked up in the bar ditches with their front wheels in the dead grass, and the men who climb out of them are dressed in their clean Saturday clothes, and they walk up toward the Hale yard with their hats already in their hands before they get there. They stand in loose groups near the barn and near the cotton shed, and nobody talks above a low voice and nobody laughs at anything because there is nothing out here this morning that is funny. A boy from the neighboring farm sells coffee out of the back of his father's truck for a nickel a cup and does a steady business because it is cold and because people need something to hold. Roy Pitts, the county auctioneer, sets up on the flatbed of his truck near the fence line. Roy has sold 40-some farms this year alone, foreclosure after foreclosure all across the county, and he does not set up with any energy this morning. He sets up the way a man does a job he has done too many times and has stopped being able to make himself feel good about. The man from the bank stands beside the flatbed with his black ledger held flat against his chest like a shield. And there is a third man standing apart from everyone else near the gate, a heavy-set man in a good wool suit and a new hat who has driven up from Oklahoma City and whose name around the cattle and land offices down there is connected to a combine that has been buying foreclosed farm ground all year, the way some men pick up coins they find on the ground. without bending down very hard for any of them.
The neighbors do not look at him, and he does not seem to require that they do.
Margaret Hale comes down off the porch at 5 minutes to 10.
Clara walks beside her wearing her father's old canvas work jacket with the sleeves rolled up 4 times to find her hands, and James walks on the other side, and the 3 of them stop near the old fence post at the edge of the yard where they can see everything without being in the middle of it. Margaret's face is set the way a face gets set when a person has already done their crying in private and has decided that whatever happens next, they will watch it standing up. Roy Pitts checks his watch and opens the auction at 10 o'clock sharp. He reads the legal description off his papers in a flat voice. 280 acres, the house, the barn, the cotton shed, the equipment, the stock pond. Reads it the way a man reads something he has read so many times the words have stopped meaning anything to him. Then he looks up at the yard full of neighbors and says, "All right, we'll start the bidding." The yard goes quiet in a way that a yard full of 60 people almost never goes quiet. Every man standing there could use 280 acres of good red bottom ground. There is not one of them who couldn't, but not one of them lifts a hand, not one of them so much as shifts his weight, because there is a rule in this county that nobody wrote down because nobody ever had to write it down, which is that you do not bid against a widow on her own front lawn while she is standing there watching you do it. Roy Pitts knows the rule. He has worked this county for 20 years, and he knows it the same way he knows where every section road goes. But he has to wait anyway because the law requires him to wait, and so he waits. He says, "Come on now, gentlemen. Good ground, good water, 40 feet to water in the stock pond." Nothing. A mockingbird somewhere out in the cotton stubble. The wind moving the weather vane on the barn roof. Then the man from Oklahoma City raises one finger off the lapel of his wool suit. 5,000, he says. And he says it the way a man says a number he has already decided is more than enough. The debt on the Hale place is $8,200. 5,000 means the bank takes a loss, the auction fee comes out of nothing, and Margaret Hale walks off her own land with empty hands while cattle combined from Oklahoma City picks up 280 acres of good cotton ground for less than the price of the equipment sitting in the shed. Roy Pitts looks at the bankman, and the bankman looks down into his ledger and does not look up. "I have 5,000, Roy says, and his voice is gone the way his voice goes on mornings like this, flat and tired and hoping for something he does not expect to get. 5,000 once. At the far end of the section road, past all the parked trucks and sedans, a battered pickup has pulled off onto the shoulder.
A man climbs out.
Tan Stetson, canvas ranch jacket, boots that have seen real ground. He does not come up into the yard. He does not walk up toward the flatbed or toward the crowd. He just leans back against the front fender of his truck with his arms easy at his sides and watches. Nobody has placed the face yet. Roy Pitts raises his hand for the second call.
5,000 twice.
8,000.
The voice comes from the road.
Every head in the yard turns at the same moment, 60 people turning toward the section road at once, and the man leaning on the fender of the truck has one hand raised, loose, easy, the way a man raises a hand to say something he is not in any hurry about. Roy Pitts squints down the road at him.
"Say that again, sir."
$8,000. The man from Oklahoma City turns all the way around and looks at the truck on the shoulder and looks at the man leaning against it, and something moves across his face that is not quite recognition and not quite worry, but is somewhere between the two. He has bought land at 40 auctions this year and not once had to work for any of it.
9, he says.
10, the man at the road says.
11.
12. The Oklahoma City man's jaw works side to side. $12,000 is real money. 12,000 is more than this ground will bring at gin prices in a bad year, and the last 3 years out here have all been bad years. He looks at the bank man the way a man looks at someone he expects to help him. The bank man has finally taken his eyes off the ledger.
13, the Oklahoma City man says, and there is something different in his voice now, something that wasn't there before, a tightness.
14, the man at the road says, and he has not raised his voice once, not a single time. He is standing against his truck fender the same way he was standing when he said 8,000, and there is nothing in his posture that suggests he is close to done. The Oklahoma City man looks at the ground. "That's all for me," he says, and he says it loud, the way a man announces a thing he wants to sound like a decision he made himself. Roy Pitts is standing up very straight on his flatbed now. "I have $14,000, Roy calls out, and his voice has come back to life in a way it has not had all morning. 14,000 bid from the road. He raises his hand. 14,000 once. The boy with the coffee has set down his pot.
14,000 twice.
Margaret Hale is staring down the section road at a man she has never seen before in her life, and her mouth has come open slightly, and she does not know it has. Sold, Roy Pitts says, for $14,000. By the time the man comes up the section road and into the yard, half the crowd has placed the face, and the other half is being told in fast, low whispers, and the whole yard parts to let him through without anyone saying a word about it, the way crowds part for a man when something has already shifted and everyone can feel it even if they cannot yet name what shifted. He does not go to Margaret first. He goes to the bank man. He takes a long brown wallet from inside his jacket and counts bills onto the lowered tailgate of Roy's flatbed truck. $100 bills, counted slow, counted in the open, in front of every person in that yard. And he counts it once because he counts it right the first time. The bank man counts it again with hands that are not entirely steady. $14,000, it covers the debt, it covers the back interest, it covers Roy Pitt's fee, and there is money remaining on the tailgate when the counting is done. Whatever's left goes to Mrs. Hale, the man says, in writing, before you get in your car. The bank man writes the receipt standing up, using the side of the flatbed as his desk. Then the man turns to Roy Pitts. You've got the deed forms. Yes, sir, I can have it drawn up this afternoon at the courthouse and...
Draw it now, off the back of your truck. You've done it that way before.
Roy Pitts has done it that way before. He gets the forms from the cab of his truck and fills them in, standing up with the wind pulling at the paper, the flatbed for a desk, his careful hand moving down the lines. 280 acres, the house, the barn, the cotton shed, the stock pond. And when he gets to the line for the buyer's name, he stops and looks up. Who do I put here, sir? The man looks across the yard to where Margaret Hale is standing by the fence post with Clara still holding her arm and James standing straight beside her. Put Margaret Hale, he says. It's her farm. Put her name on the line. Roy Pitt's pen stops on the paper for a moment.
Then he writes it.
He climbs down off the flatbed and carries the deed across the yard himself, and the whole crowd watches him walk every step of it. 60 people standing in complete silence while the auctioneer carries a piece of paper across a dirt yard in the cold October light. He puts it in Margaret Hale's hands. She reads it. She reads it a second time, slowly, and then her hand begins to shake and Clara takes the paper from her carefully before it can fall. Mister, Margaret says, and she is looking past Roy at the man standing near the flatbed. I can't. I don't have any way to pay this back. I will never have it. I can't take this from a stranger. The man crosses the yard to her. Up close, he is older than the pictures of him that are in the movie magazines at the drugstore in Tulsa, and the lines in his face are deep, and he stands in the dirt yard of a cotton farm in Oklahoma, the same way he stands in every picture, like the ground under him is his ground and he is comfortable on it.
Your husband, he says. He served. Margaret nods. Korea, 50 to 52. He came home in the spring and went back in the fall and came home again in 52 with a shoulder that never healed right.
Then he already paid for this ground, the man says. Paid more for it than I put on that tailgate. Call it back pay. Long overdue. He looks at her straight. You keep the farm, you bring the cotton in, you send those children to school if they've got a mind to go, and if they've got a mind to stay and work the ground, you let them do that too.
Clara looks up at him from beside her mother.
What's your name? She says. I want to know it so I can tell people.
The man is already turning, already moving back toward the section road with that same easy walk, the hard part behind him and the long road still ahead. Tell them a fellow stopped for the auction, he says over his shoulder, without turning around. Roy Pitts has had the face placed for 10 minutes and cannot hold it anymore. That's John Wayne, Roy says, to nobody, to everybody, to the whole still yard. Lord Almighty, that's John Wayne.
The man does not turn around.
He lifts one hand, the same loose, easy hand he raised to bid from the shoulder of a dirt road, and he keeps walking, and he gets into his truck, and he pulls off the shoulder onto the section road and points it south and west toward Tulsa, toward Texas, toward Arizona, toward the picture already waiting on him. The dust comes up behind the truck and hangs in the cold October air a long time after the truck itself is gone. Margaret Hale brought the cotton in that first fall with James driving the truck between the rows and two neighbor men who would not take her money, and then took half of it because she held it out long enough and would not stop. The crop was thin again that year, and it did not matter because the ground was hers, and there was no note on it and no man from the bank coming up the section road in February with a folder on the seat beside him. She farmed it 19 years. She learned the equipment, she learned the gin tickets, she learned the stock pond and the fence line and all the particular ways that 280 acres of red Oklahoma ground behaves in a wet year and a dry one, and she carried the place in her head the way Earl had carried it, except now there were no numbers in there that belonged to anyone else, only the running of it, and she ran it.
James came back from 2 years at Oklahoma State and worked the ground alongside her, and Clara married a Broken Arrow boy named Ray Cutter, who knew cotton and knew how to be quiet when quiet was what was needed, and the two of them worked it too.
Margaret Hale died in the farmhouse in 1976. The cotton was already in the ground.
John Wayne drove on to Arizona that October and made his pictures and went on making them for years after, and he never once spoke of the auction outside Tulsa to a reporter or in an interview or in any letter that anyone has ever found.
The man from Oklahoma City told the story for years in offices and at cattle sales, the way a man keeps telling a story that got away from him and still sits a little wrong. That is most of how it ever got out at all. $14,000 one Saturday morning, one hand raised easy off the shoulder of a section road. The Hale farm is still there. If you drive 30 miles outside Tulsa and find the right red dirt road, you will see the cotton fields first, and then the barn, and then the house. And inside the house in the kitchen, there is a framed document on the wall beside the window. The original deed, October 1957, 280 acres conveyed to Margaret Hale, with a line added at the bottom in Roy Pitts's careful hand.
Purchased and conveyed the same day at no charge to the grantee by request of the buyer.
The buyer's name is not written anywhere on it. He would not let Roy write it down. The wheat keeps coming up out of that red Oklahoma ground the way it has come up every year since 1957, and the deed stays on the wall, and the afternoon light comes through the kitchen window and lies across it for a while every day before it moves on. If this story reached you, do one thing. Pass it on to a veteran in your life, because some debts were paid a long time before anyone got around to settling them. Hit subscribe if you haven't yet. There are more Duke stories where this one came from.